Happy Friday, Brian Manning here with your weekly update. Let's get right to it. So Monday of this week, relatively quiet news day, not a lot to talk about there. Tuesday this week, though, we had Fed President Waller talking about rate cuts. This is a very influential person. He's a voting member in the Federal Reserve. He said he's definitely in favor of a rate cut here in December, so we'll have to keep an eye out for that. The next Federal Reserve meeting, very important for all of us in the room, is going to be December 17th and 18th. So they start on the 17th. They'll conclude their meeting on the 18th. At the end of the meeting, Fed President Jerome Powell will have a scripted speech that he'll deliver. At that point in time, he'll discuss what they're doing with interest rates, whether they're going to cut them, keep them the same, or increase them. And then he'll do a press conference after that as well. So this is very important. This impacts all of us as far as the economy is concerned. So we want to pay very close attention to what's going to happen on December 18th in the press conference there. We also got some feedback from Apartment List. So Apartment List looks at rents across the country. It said that new rents were down 0.8%. I bring this up because if we look at the inflation readings that we received, specifically PCE, that stands for the personal consumption expenditure. This is the Federal Reserve's favorite gauge of inflation. There's definitely a very big disconnect. I've talked about this for quite a long time, saying that the actual rental numbers that we're seeing in the marketplace and the declines that we're seeing there are very different from what we're seeing in the inflation readings. And we're definitely seeing faster declines in the rental markets than what the inflation readings are showing. Hopefully it catches up sooner versus later. We've been saying that for probably, I feel like, about 2 years now. Ideally, it's going to catch up at some point in time, but we're going to have to wait and see. But we're still seeing a little bit of softness in the rental market there. Wednesday this week, we got ADP. I actually can't believe it's another first month. So the first week of a month. The first week of every month, we get employment readings. The first Wednesday, we get ADP. That's the largest provider of private payrolls in the U.S. First Friday of the month, we get the BLS. So ADP came out. There was an expectation of 163,000 new jobs to be created, and we had 146,000. So a little bit of a miss, but fairly in line with expectations. We also had on Thursday, Jerome Powell speaking. He was at a conference, and Jerome Powell was talking. In his conference, he said he sees strength in the U.S. economy. He sees downside risk in the labor market. So he says, basically seeing continued strength in the labor market, and he sees strong economic growth for us. So we have to pay attention to this and see what his comments are going forward, because if you continue to have downside risk in labor market, strong economic growth, unfortunately, that doesn't bode well for rate cuts in the future. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Again, circling back to that December 18th meeting is going to be very important for us. Today, the first Friday of the month, we get BLS. That's Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is the government's report on what's happening with employment. This is for the month of November. So on Wednesday, we got ADP report. That was their reading for the month of November. Today, we get the BLS report. That's for the month of November. So month of November expectations were 214,000 new jobs to be created. We got 227,000, so a little bit better than expected. The unemployment rate did move from 4.1% to 4.2%. So the first reading we get is the establishment survey. So this is a lot of modeling that goes into this. It's like what they call the birth-death ratio. So what that means, they look at how many companies were born or how many were opened, what industry are they in, and based on the industries that they're in, how many people would they hire. Then they look at how many companies closed. Based on the industries that they were in, how many people would they lay off. So that's how you get the birth-death ratio. So a lot of modeling goes into that. Then we have the household number. So household number is when they call households across the country. What's interesting, if you look at the household number, and the household numbers, we lost 355,000 jobs. So if you look at the household numbers, it's definitely a very big difference what we're seeing when they're talking to actual people versus their predictive modeling. We've talked about this a lot in the past. There's always a big disconnect there. It's very challenging because it does move the markets, but definitely I think the bond markets are kind of smartening up, and they're seeing the underlying weakness, unfortunately, in the labor market. Even though Federal Reserve Jerome Powell says he sees a downside risk in the labor market, here we are, household survey shows 355,000 jobs lost in the month of November. So I always think there's a little bit of a disconnect in information there. I'm around all weekend. If you have any questions, let me know. If you want to learn how we're closing purchase transactions in 10 days, start to finish, reach out to me. Realtors, we got a whole new series of classes coming up that we're getting ready to release. They'll start in January. I'm super excited for these. Take a look at our email that we're sending out. We have information on where the classes are taking place. We're doing Boulder, Denver, Fort Collins, Colorado Springs. Super excited to do this little run. We hope to see everybody there. Happy Friday. I hope you have a great day.